if you try it and it doesn't work, you don't really lose anything, right? Like I may lose a couple dollars, right? Because I went and bought a tool that maybe didn't really have the field awareness that I thought it could impact on that person. But if you try something, you don't lose anything. But if you don't try, then you could be losing opportunities. So yeah, I definitely felt the freedom to, again, pick their brains of how they thought about pitching. And then how do we connect it with what I thought? And then from there, it's like a trial and error. Like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this grip. Let's try this, a pressure point. But even when it comes to stances and things like that, like how do we get the most out of them? How do they accelerate best? Are they able to load and transfer weight like appropriately? So everything to me is like trial and error. It's you just can't be afraid to go to that space.
Whether you live northeast, west, or south, the best fast pitch info comes from the coach's mouth. Welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast with your hosts, Jay Bolden and Ken Kraus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast. This is Ken Kraus, here as always with my friend Jay Bolden. Jay, the extraordinary pitching coach. So, Jay, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty good, Ken. I got back from a family vacation, so that was super excited. I think I'm getting to the point I've been telling some of my clients and coaches and friends, like I'm at the point now where I need to detach a little bit from softball, need to take a little break. So the family vacation was great too, and now I'm looking forward to taking a few weeks off of lessons and, again, getting ready to go back to school with my main job, and you got to focus a little bit more on that now. So how about you? How you been doing? You been out there in all this crazy heat?
Yeah, I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago as well. Got back out there this week. The heat was just insane. You know, heat index above 100 degrees. I'm not much of a hat guy, but someone had brought me back a bucket hat from their trip to Seattle, one of my students. And I've actually been wearing that and just trying to keep the sun off of my head so it doesn't burn. You guys can see it here on the video. It's my soldiers are covering a little more ground than they used to. So, I wanted to keep my head from burning, but otherwise, just a lot of water, a lot of Gatorade, trying to stay hydrated.
Absolutely awesome. Well, it's still great that you're out there still giving those lessons out, Ken. So, but enough about us. You want to tell some people, give some background on our awesome guest today. I'm super excited about this one today, and I cannot wait for people. Hopefully people have their pen and paper to take some notes today. It's going to be a great one.
All righty. Well, today's guest is definitely an up-and-comer in the softball coaching ranks. After a successful career as a pitcher at Cal Poly, where in 4 years she helped lead her team to not one but two Big West Championship games, including the conference title in 2007, she began her coaching journey as student assistant and then a volunteer coach at her alma mater. From there, our guest took on her first major role as an assistant coach at Cal State Bakersfield, primarily working with the pitching staff. While there, she was a major contributor to the team's winning its first ever Western Athletic Conference championship in 2015. After a stop at Division II Menlo College in Atherton, California, where she helped the team accumulate a program record 31 wins in 2017, while the pitching staff posted a stingy 2.59 ERA, our guest left sunny California for some reason for the crazy weather of the Midwest. She spent several years as the pitching coach at University of Memphis before taking on a similar role at Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro. While at MTSU, she helped the staff become 35th ranked among D1 schools with a 2.44 ERA. They also earned 3 regional wins, including one against Alabama, which was the most by a Conference USA program since 2014. In 2024, she stepped up to the big chair, becoming the 11th head coach at mid-major Ball State University, where her team made it to the Mid-American Conference championship game. Clearly, our guest makes a difference wherever she goes and does it quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredible Helen Pena to the From the Coach's Mouth podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Really excited to get going here.
We are too.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate your time today, Helen. But I got to ask you, California to the Midwest. I mean, what's that about? I mean, did you grew up in California, I guess, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Southern California. It's a town called Hemet. And so when you think of California, a lot of people think of Irvine, Huntington Beach, just awesome weather and things like that. But I'm actually from the Inland Empire is what we call it. And it's hot, desert. Hemet's not the nicest place. And so I think growing up there has allowed me to be adaptable to different areas and, loved my time at Memphis even. It gets sometimes a bad rap, but loved my time there. Murfreesboro, was a suburb kind of feel. So a lot of things there were like updated and nice, which was fine. But yeah, just had to get used to the cold really. So outside of that, I'm pretty adaptable, I would say.
Have you gotten used to the cold?
I still need to get gloves. I don't know why I haven't gotten my pair of winter gloves. Every time I am walking through the snow and my hands are freezing, I just always kind of kick myself in the butt. Just why don't you have any gloves yet? But I'm pretty set when it comes to jackets now, for sure.
That's good. And then also, if you were out in the desert, have you gotten used to the humidity yet around here?
Yeah, I mean, the Mid-South, Memphis and things like that, that kind of got me prepped, I would say. And then recruiting, of course, in Florida and Georgia, Texas, so I've had my fair share of humidity for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get started here, Helen. I want to ask if you can take us back to kind of the early days. Give us a little bit of your softball playing journey. How did it start for you? What age were you? How did you get involved in the travel ball world? And then give us a little bit as to how you transitioned from that player in college over to coaching.
Yeah. So you want to know it all. All right. Yeah.
We do. It's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. So
yeah, it is. So I started playing ball just like everyone else, probably, 5, 6, got into t-ball, all of that. I started playing travel ball when I was about 8 or 9. There was a local team in Southern California called Hot Stuff at the time. They later turned to be Miners Gold. Played with them for a few years. The owner of the organization saw me and my dad working out in his little, he had a factory. He grew potatoes that actually, those potatoes went to McDonald's fries. It was this weird thing. But so anyway, so he saw me and my dad working and basically kind of put a little seed in my dad's ear, hey, if she continues, she could go to college for free. And my dad, he's a construction worker. It was just me and him growing up. So he, didn't have much and things like that. And it travel ball then didn't cost what it does now.
Yeah.
And so we got into it and had some help along the way when it came to coaches that allowed my dad not to have to pay some fees just to help with, because all we were able to do really was travel to tournaments and then pay for lessons, here and there. And so was really thankful for that opportunity. And from there, my dad kind of just had this idea, lefty pitcher. All right. She can go, to the next level. She can get an education, which a lot of people in my family didn't have. And so, just really thankful for that opportunity and continued on throughout my career there. And then I was in the Crony Angels with Marty Tyson for a season or two, and then eventually got to SoCal Athletics with Bruce Richardson. And he really made a huge impact late in my career. And I was on a team with some amazing athletes, Taylor Schlopey, Charlotte Morgan. There's just a lot of amazing athletes that went to some really good programs. And from there, I got recruited, went on some, my 5 visits. And when I went to my visit at Cal Poly, it was different than Hemet. It was, they took me to Pismo Pier, I believe it was at the time. And my other visit before that, my very first one was Oklahoma State. And just very different landscapes, very different, geography. And just knowing that, it would have been hard for my dad to take a plane ticket to watch me play, every weekend. I knew I wanted that just because of how close we are. And so Cal Poly, it was it for me. And I enjoyed my time there. I struggled when it came to academics, just thinking about coaches that made impact in my life. Those 3 coaches that I had there, had them for all 4 years. They truly not just kept me out of trouble, but I like to say that they made it possible for me to graduate with a degree and take that next step. Because I believe if it wasn't for them, I would have had to have gone back home and probably get into some trouble there. And so I feel like
what was your degree in?
My degree was sociology and anthropology with a minor in psychology. So basically just studying people all day, every day. But I loved it. I think I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. I thought I was going to go into the Peace Corps or, go to Africa or Middle East and try to save some problems that were going on back then in 2009 and 2010. But yeah, just really thankful for my coaches there. And I kind of say like they saved my life in a sense. And so that's kind of how I was able to stay and go through that. And that's kind of where I started my journey from there.
It's such an important message right there too. I think, people think that coaches are just helping you build skills, right? Like helping you develop skills as a player. But it's those connections that on the personal level that really makes the biggest difference in coaching. And I think that's the passion that you have that I've had conversations with you about. It's more than just the player. It's about the person first, and the player is somewhere in there, but it's more about person first. So those coaches definitely had an impact on how I see the way that you coach and the way that you work with your players too. So, it's great that message is out there, Helen. It's awesome.
And not everyone needs that, right? Like not everyone needs to be saved, and not everyone not everyone is a first generational college graduate. So not everyone's going to need that deep. But the ones who do, I found like that's the why, right? Like it's part of the why. Like that's something where I feel like I can give back and kind of help someone who's maybe been in similar shoes that they're going through it, or they don't feel like they can finish, or they don't feel like they're capable enough, like very similar concepts. But yeah, when you talk about like, what's your why, like that, I kind of go back to that. And even though I'm not in the Middle East or Africa helping people, I can help those around me every single day,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that, makes me wonder. So, you're thinking you're going to go into the Peace Corps, you're going to do something like that, go to another country, help people out. How do you transition then into coaching? How do you end up there?
So my senior year, my junior year, had a blast. It was probably one of my best years. Senior year, I had some injuries in my shoulder, and it was kind of preventing me to play as much as I wanted to. But me and the pitching coach that was there, Annie Nias, she allowed me some freedom to help out with some of the younger pitchers on staff. And so kind of just talking with them, if I wasn't able to pitch that day, like being at their bullpens, talking to them about adjustments and things like that. I found some light bulbs in some of those girls, and I kind of fell in love in that moment with the light bulbs. And I talked to my pitching coach, and she was like, well, I basically said the same thing to her. And I was like, yeah, I think I just said it maybe it's slightly different. Like, I don't know, like I hear you talking to her about it, but for some reason it just clicked with me. And so I was like, I like that feeling. And at that point, it wasn't this deep, purposeful act, right? Like I didn't find my why yet, but I enjoyed the light bulb, like the teaching moment of it. And that's kind of how I just figured out okay, I'm going to do this maybe another year. I'll do it for a student assistant because I needed to finish. And then I was like, okay, I'll do it one more year, So then I stayed for the volunteer year. And then I decided, hey, maybe I can do this. And, that's kind of how it all started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then from there, so after the volunteer position, where was your next stop?
The next stop was Cal State Bakersfield.
And then that was as the pitching coach there? Is that what that was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I worked with the pitchers and then kind of just helped out with hitting a little bit, hitting and defense here and there, but mainly just pitchers and catchers. And I had some really amazing athletes there. I think as a young coach, you only know what you know, right? And so
Right.
I started to fall in love with, okay, what else is out there? Like, because I was teaching them things that I know, like knew, or things that I had thought about when I was like 13 or 14. I had to almost like reteach myself a pitching, because I went to a different pitching coach who really helped the foundations of everything. So I almost had to break myself down from the ground up, which I felt like gave me really good field awareness as I went into high school and college. But that's all I knew. Like and so you're just in this bubble and you're trying to work with these athletes as a young coach. And that opened up more doors for me, because I'm like, okay, I know there's other things out there. I want to research it. I want to connect with other pitching coaches. I want to figure out, what don't I know? And so that sparked this like growth mindset in me of, I started to nerd out a little bit. I call it nerding out, but just really researching and finding different ways to do things. You've talked a little bit like biomechanics and just vision training, like how all of these things affect the pitcher. And I feel like there is where I started to branch out and try different things with those athletes.
So feel free to call it nerding out as much as you want, because you're talking to probably the two biggest pitching nerds there are. Ken and I converse on honestly a daily basis about things with other pitching coaches too. So we're right in that nerdy thing with you, and we're okay if you're nerding out on it, because
I should have worn my glasses today, like you guys.
Yeah, you put them on, you look just like us. I'll be the same. And I think too, but I don't know if you call it nerding out if you want, but I think it's that drive to try to make the people around you better, right? Like, and Ken and I always harp on this too. Like, and I'm not knocking anybody, Helen, but I feel like sometimes when coaches get to a certain level, they feel like, okay, well, I know it and this is the way I've done it, so everybody's going to do it that way. And I don't feel like everybody's in that same situation, right? Kids move differently. People are different. We're all different. And nerding out is such a good thing because it makes you explore, learn, and grow. And I think some coaches just get stuck in their ways and they don't want to learn and grow, right? And they don't want things to be another way that they did it. They want it to be the way they did it. And so feel free to nerd out all you want with us here, because we are going to get into some pitching things today. So I do, especially when we're talking about just some data stuff and that kind of stuff. But so feel free to nerd it out. But my question for you is, was it a big transition when you went from that volunteer position over to a full-time, you are the pitching coach now, we're going to be successful and our kids are going to develop because of you? Was that a big transition for you, moving from that volunteer position into an actual title of pitching coach?
I mean, yeah, it was a big transition, but it, for some reason, wasn't uncomfortable for me. I think just because having a close relationship with my previous pitching coach, talking pitching a lot, talking about ideas, I felt really comfortable in the sense. So I wasn't uncomfortable. I think from there, it was truly about getting to know the pitchers and what are their strengths and what do they do well? What are they comfortable with? What are they uncomfortable with? What is something that we can complement their toolbox with? It was really just my main goal at that point was like diving into who these pitchers are, what are their strengths, like what do they believe about pitching, and how do we get on the same page when it comes to language and approach and concepts and things like that. I wasn't uncomfortable. It was more of like an exciting, like, okay, like now I get to get my hands dirty sort of sense. I get to get creative and do things that maybe I didn't do growing up and things like that. So it was more exciting than anything else.
And then as you learned some things, I mean, did you feel free to experiment with your kids to say, here, let's try this. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but it seems like a good idea. Seems like it's a good fit for you.
Absolutely. I think I can always do that. I think I always do that. I feel like, because if you try it and it doesn't work, you don't really lose anything, right? Mm-hmm. Like I may lose a couple dollars, right? Because I went and bought a tool that maybe didn't really have the field awareness that I thought it could impact on that person. But if you try something, you don't lose anything. But if you don't try, then you could be losing opportunities. So yeah, I definitely felt the freedom to, again, pick their brains of how they thought about pitching, and then how do we connect it with what I thought, And then from there, it's like a trial and error. Like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this grip. Let's try this, a pressure point. But even when it comes to stances and things like that, like how do we get the most out of them? How do they accelerate best? Are they able to load and transfer weight like appropriately? So everything to me is like trial and error. It's you just can't be afraid to go to that space.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So how would you categorize your coaching style? What do you feel, is kind of your strength or your approach to it? What makes it work for you?
So I'm a connector, and I don't know if you guys have done like the personality tests and like things like the strength finders test and all these other things. I loved those as a young coach, just to help athletes and even help ourselves like kind of gain some awareness and how do we lean into our strengths. And so I've always been a connector. I coach and I teach best when I understand what motivates that person, what drives that person, what's their why, what's their purpose and passion. So that part is the fun part, but it helps me to coach them better. Some players don't want to go into the head coach's office and have these long conversations and talks and get to know yous. But really, especially this past year, I've tried to encourage my athletes more because, again, like I feel like I'm at my best and I coach my best when I get that like extra layer of understanding about them. And then coaching philosophy wise, the expectation is to grow inside and out. And so that is for my players, it's for myself, it's for my staff. If we're not growing, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves and those around us. And so that's one of the key things that I always think about. And then the coaching philosophy per se is like, I believe you build the person to develop the player. To me, like you can't do one without the other. So I can give someone drills and I can I can build the perfect practice plan, but really, if we're not building them the confidence, the resiliency, the belief system that they're able to go through hard things and it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's you're not always going to feel good, but if they can have the confidence to go through that, the drills and skills and all of that becomes so much easier, right? Like you can talk about the game because they're not up here worried about, oh, like, what is she thinking of me? Or, I don't think I can do this. And all these natural thoughts that come into our brains, right? And they're 18 to 22-year-olds. So they're going to have it. We have it, right? I'm 37 years old and I'm battling those thoughts as well. And so it's really like, if we're going to develop the player, we can't not focus on building the person as well. And if we can do both, then that's how I feel like we can create some amazing human beings that just so happen to be really good at softball too.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned something too, and I just want to ask this. So you were talking about how, we as coaches feel the same way. I mean, do you ever have those days where you sit there and you go, what am I doing here? Maybe this isn't for me. I just don't seem to know what I'm doing. I can't get what I want out of it. Maybe it's time to start rethinking my career. Do you ever get those days?
Absolutely. When I say the expectation is to grow, and when I say it's for myself, it's because I'm constantly, probably too much, but constantly like reflecting and going internal. Like if we have a bad weekend, if I'm not connecting well with, certain people, like I do go inward, and I don't know if a lot of players realize like how much coaches do care and how much we think about them when we're not in the office, when we're not on the field, we're not in the game, we're not in practice. Like how much we think about how they're doing, what we can do more for them. Are we doing enough? Are we being enough? Right? Like it's something, that coaches go through. I go through very deeply at times, and I try to have people around me to remind me of like, hey, it takes time. You're doing what you can right now with where you're at and with what you got. And like same speeches that we tell our players, we kind of have to remind ourselves as well. Because it does get hard, when you're trying to do the best you can, you're trying to serve others. And if you don't feel like you're doing enough, like it can get hard and dark at times. And so just coaching yourself up of what you would say to your players, and then having those around you that can remind you of those things is important for a coach.
Yeah, having a good support system is definitely a thing, especially when you have people that you lean on. Speaking of that, do you still have coaches that you're in connection with when you're having that day and you call them, you're like, hey, I got, we got to talk. Do you still have some of those coaches? Who are some of your mentors or people that you lean on in when you have times like that?
Yeah. So Natalie Poole, she's the head coach at Southern Miss right now. And she was with me at Memphis. Like, she's someone that I lean on a lot. She knows me inside and out, good, bad, ugly, sometimes too intense and passionate. And she knows all sides of me. And so she's definitely someone that I lean on. I've actually tried to remind myself this summer, like, to use my resources. As coaches, sometimes we get so much in the thick of it that we don't reach out and say, like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, like, what's going on here? And so going into the fall, like, one of my growth moments is to make sure, like, I reach out to those resources, and they're not just resources. Like, it's like your tribe. Like, resources seems like something that you just use when you really need it, but really it's like your tribe of people, that's your inner circle that want to see you win and are always going to have your back and things like that. Like, another one I would say is a Goaler from Western Illinois. She's been someone that I've been connecting to more often, and such an amazing human being, positive person, and really one of the best competitors ever at Georgia, I would say. But yeah, so you have those people. And I think just as a coach, you have to just remind yourself that don't sit in it. Like, don't sit in your corner too long. Like, make sure you reach out to your tribe, because more than not, like, they want to help.
That's awesome. I want to go back real quick too, Helen. You said something and it just resonated with me a minute ago. You were talking about, trying to coach the person first and the player second. I feel like, this is just me, I feel like if you take care of that and really focus on the person, the player is only going to get better. And then I think the wins and losses kind of take care of themselves if you're building just good people first. I always say, if we build good people first, then the wins and losses will take care of themselves. So I just thought that was a great moment for me to put into my vault when you said that. So that was awesome. I do want to say one other thing too. And Ken, this is why I really like Helen. And so when I was at Loyola, we played Middle Tennessee State, and I went during that time frame that I was there, I really tried to soak in and suck up as much information just by either watching or talking to people. So we played Middle Tennessee State, but that was later in the day that day. And so I just was like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch these pitching coaches in the bullpen just so I could see like what they're doing. And when I saw Helen working with her pitchers in the bullpen there in Carbondale, I was like, this lady knows what she's doing. And of course, we played a good game against them. They beat us, but I think it was like a 3-2 game. But I was just impressed with Helen, and I'm like, this is a pitching coach that I would have no problem sending some of my kids to, just because of the communication she had in the bullpen and stuff like that. So I think like your grow, just so you know, like people are watching you, Helen, you're doing a great job. You're a great pitching coach. But I want to get into my next question here is, was it a big transition for you moving from that pitching coach role into your head coach role at Ball State? And what was the biggest like, whoa moment for you when you took over the head coaching job?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. That was so sweet. But
true. I do not lie. I'll tell you that it's true.
Oh, Jay, don't believe that. Jay lies all the time, but maybe not about this.
Yeah. So it absolutely going from an assistant, just in general, to a pitching coach. There's a different, especially, when I talked about how I coach best, like when I was at Middle Tennessee, when I was at Memphis, players would usually come and talk to me. Like, they would come into my office, we would have a sit down, they would spill, they would open up, and all of these things, right? And so I love that. And it's harder, I think, for them to do it to a head coach, which I get. And I've heard from other head coaches that are friends of mine, Jordan Clark from FAU, like, she was like, hey, like, that's one of the biggest differences. Like, when you're a head coach, you're not going to get that closeness. Like, they just don't see you the same. And so that was one of the harder things, just going from assistant to the head coach piece. But then also I would say, just really wanting to give the pitchers what they need is hard. And then when you're limited in space and time, right? So, we have an amazing football indoor. Like I hope everyone in the Midwest hears this. Ball State has amazing facilities. We have an amazing indoor facility, best in the MAC. I'm just gonna throw it out there. And so we're very fortunate in that regard. But when it comes to, I'm so used to being out at the field for 5-6 hours sometimes. If I have, 2.5 hour practice, and then I've got 3 hours, if I've got 6 pitchers and 2 of them are going at a time, then I'm out there for, 5.5 hours. And so, but when you're indoors, we've got a small time block. And so I think that was one of the harder pieces of trying to get creative and giving pitchers, what they needed in that 1 hour, before you went into 2-hour practice. And so I think the creativeness of using our time, using our space as well as we could have when we couldn't be outside. Now we're getting a brand new turf. So we won't be inside as much or as long, which I'm really excited about that. And so this year, having our pitchers on staff, we should be able to be out there more often than not. So I'm really not too worried in that regard. But my transition here, that was the biggest thing, is kind of how do I balance that? How do I get connected with them in that kind of short time while they're all kind of there because of classes or, again, space and time that we have in that indoor? They're all basically going at once. And so I think that was difficult. It's not what I was used to. I was used to, again, Mid-South. They didn't have a lot of snow, right? So we were outside. I was literally on the field for 6 hours a day. And then I would try to do my work at night or things like that. And so that was something that I had to adjust to.
At Ball State, are you still heavily involved with the pitchers, or has that kind of dialed back?
Nope. I'm the pitching coach.
Okay.
So I did have a helper last year, Deb Jones, who was an amazing pitcher for Ball State, went to Arizona State, did incredible. She was their number one her last year there, did an amazing job. So she came back for last year and was able to kind of learn some things under me and was able to help in the bullpen, just another set of eyes and things like that. And so we were very fortunate to have her, but I remain the pitching coach. And so I'll do all of their functional screening at the very beginning, figure out their a plyo system, things like that. So I'll plan their bullpens and then plan team practice as well.
Nice. So so I take it you're still the pitch caller then as well too?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find it hard to do both? Are you at third base as well too? Are you doing that hitting side? No? Oh, awesome.
No. So I I learned from Natalie Poole. Me and her were so different. When I came in there, I was fire and she was cool as a water, just a lake, right? She's very even keeled, very controlled manner, goes internal when she's thinking, right? And I was more of passion, intensity, just outward. And we balanced each other there. I learned a lot, right, about how to do that. And I think I brought more out of her, and she was able to, I don't want to say contain me, but for me to realize the win moments, when is a good time, when is it not, to really, be contained. And so when I was thinking about my staff, I truly got lucky. I love how the universe works like this. It was so late, but I got who I wanted. I got the best people around me, and they're all very different than me. They all have their strengths. I wanted to get masters in their realm, right? So if I'm the pitching coach, bullpen coach, if you will, I wanted to get masters at defense and infield, and then hitting and catching, right? So Coach Burns, he's the third base coach. He does all of our offensive, coordinating. We talk about lineup. Obviously, I'm the one who's making the lineup, but outside of that, he's the one doing all the hitting, and he's got a great mind for it. Run production. Last year, our average went up. We led the nation in hit by pitches. And then defensively, Coach Avery Steiner, she's amazing. She's from the Midwest, so she's my Midwest person. Was amazing player at Illinois. Yeah, just incredible teachers of the game, both of them, incredible people. I love how connected we are on and off the field. So I truly got lucky with both of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's nice. It's always good when you can find people who compliment you. So I always go back to the old William Wrigley statement and said, if two men agree on everything, one of them isn't necessary. You don't necessarily want everybody that thinks the same way you do. You want to get other outside opinions and say, maybe that's worth considering.
And I don't care if it's my idea or someone else's. I just want the best idea, right? If we're trying to give these student athletes, these young women, the best experience possible to help them grow, to push them past their perceived limitations, like it's not going to be my idea all the time. Probably most of the time it's not going to be my idea, right? But like if we can just do what's best for them and like what is the best idea, like let go of pride, let go of ego, we're just going to run with it then, and we all have different mindsets. We all have different strengths. And I've actually heard that quite a few times this summer when we've had like transfers and recruits and things, and they've complimented on like how well we get along, but how different we are. And if someone's comfortable coming to me, they may not be comfortable going to Coach Avery, or if someone's comfortable going to Coach Avery, they may not be comfortable going to, Coach Burns or myself. So like having different personalities, having the differences that people can connect to is important as well.
And along those lines, let's say you have an athlete who's resistant to an idea. How do you manage that? That's again something that coaches face all the time. So that they're trying to help, they see an opportunity here, but you've got a kid who's just kind of stuck in their ways. How do you get past that?
Well, at this point, hopefully we spot that early on. Like to me, again, part of the culture, part of how I live life and what I want here is the expectation is to grow. If you don't have a mindset that allows you to just try different things, and if it doesn't work, then fine, we'll try something else. But if you don't have that mindset, then you're probably not going to be successful here. You're probably not going to get the opportunities that you want. And for us, it's like, we want to give the why. Like we want players to ask the questions. Okay, like I'm feeling this. Is this really happening, or am I doing something else? Like let's watch film. If you feel like you're doing it right, but we're watching film and it's showing something different, okay, then we've got to bridge that gap. And how do we do that? Is when it comes to pitching, we do it by plyos. We can do it by the weight room movements and movement capacity and things like that. But if there is a disconnect, then it's our job to get on the same page, but we have to be open to it. So the athletes have to be open, and it's our job to get on the same page. Like I think as coaches, like we can't just say, hey, go do this without saying, hey, I need you to do this because this is what's going on, in your swing or in your pitching motion, and this is what it's causing you to do. So this is why we're going to switch gears. Like this is why we're going to go into this drill. This is why we're going to do something. And so that why piece has to be there. Like we're not going to expect people to follow us blindly. And I think that's also why, again, we all love to nerd out, right? It's because we want to know the why. We want to know the details. Like we can't just teach things to everyone and put like a blanket on them and say, yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, we're good. Like that makes sense. No, there has to be a why. Why someone's doing this and that other person's doing something different. Okay, the why is because their bodies move differently. They have different movement patterns. They have different limitations within their body structure. That's the why. So I think we want kids to ask why. We want them to be students of what we're teaching, students of the game, students of life, all of that, right? So if someone was closed-minded, then I would say we might have done a bad job recruiting and they just, but I hope going forward, like we are getting kids in. We definitely are. I'm really excited. Even the team that we have this year and the next few years that we're going to be having, like we've got some great kids who want to grow, who want to get better and get the most out of their experience on and off the field. So
otherwise the transfer portal is in their future.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that. It's really hard. It makes it hard when we want the most for them, but if they're blocked off, then yeah, it's going to be hard for them to be successful anywhere they go, not just here,
So let me ask you, Helen, definitely talking about, we know what your why is and your motivation to help people grow. What are some things that you do culture-wise there at Ball State, maybe even outside of the softball capacity, meaning like not on the field, but outside of the field that you do to help build the culture there at Ball State?
So our culture, it's a big piece of mine. So like if, as much as I love nerding out when it comes to pitching, I love nerding out when it comes to culture. You can look at my bookshelf right now, and like some of it is on sports psychology, some of it's on becoming a better coach, becoming better people, and a lot of it's about culture and how to bring pieces together. And so we have a 6-pillar culture that we go through, and each pillar is a theme, and we put those themes, we'll do weeks and weeks and weeks. So like 2 to 3 weeks. We'll go through it, and I'll try to have exercises in a practice, in the weight room, in our sports psychology sessions, where these themes can be seen and they can be exercised. So the first pillar that we go through is relationships, and it's relationships with others. Again, how to push one another, how to trust one another. Really, like, trust and openness is the foundation for everything else to be built upon. And so we'll go through that, how they can become a connected team, because each team that you go through every year is going to be different. It's going to be different personalities, different strengths, all of that. And so the first few weeks, the first month, and again, when we go through the pillars, we focus on it for those few weeks, like heavily, but it's still always remaining a focus throughout the year. We don't just talk about it once and then, never talk about it again. And so that's the first one. And then part of that is relationship with self. So that piece is creating some self-awareness. Like, what are you feeding your mind? When you're scrolling through your Instagram, what are you feeding it? Is it stuff that you're comparing yourself to? Is it, just people making fun of other people? Like, what are you feeding your brain constantly through social media? We talk about creating healthy boundaries, how to pour into yourself, how do you recharge best? Everyone's going to need something different, and they have to figure that out before the 20 hours, because once we get into springtime, you just get one day, right? So if you're not planning that day to be as most fulfilling and resetting as possible, then you're going to feel like that whole week, like you're trying to catch up on things, because you're not going to feel recharged. And so, so that's the other piece of the relationship, is with others and then with self. And then the next one is passion to serve. And so to serve is a privilege, and, to lead is to serve. And so we find different ways in the fall to give back. And I think at this level, like I mentioned before, me going and being able to be a first generation graduate and being able to give back maybe to those, and like trying to open up doors for others to come behind. Like, I feel like it's our privilege at a certain level when we have a platform to use it for good. And, at Ball State, like, these young women, they love to serve. I feel like anytime we bring up something, whether it's the Challenge League, Soup Kitchen, Women's Shelter, Habitat for Humanity, they're so good humans that, like, they're excited, like they're ecstatic, like, oh, we get to go a community service today. Like, I feel like they're really excited to do those things, which is really awesome. The next one is relentless effort, and that's kind of just the core at what we do things. So at the end of the day, can you put your stamp on the day? Can you sign off and put your name on how you showed up in the weight room, how you showed up at practice, how you showed up in the classroom, what you put into your relationships and friendships? Can you look in the mirror and say, like, you gave the best that you could, you gave great care into those little things that you did that day, and realizing that some days, if you have 60%, but you gave all of that 60, then you gave 100%. So that effort piece can be up and down, but that's why the relationship with self and recharging is so important. It's all connected in my mind. The next one is competitive excellence. And usually, and this is all of a flow. So this is all built on top of one another. So when we get into relentless effort and competitive excellence, is usually mid to end fall. And then we always kind of pick it up once they come back in January, because competitive excellence is like, we're going through it. So we're going to have different challenges when it comes to hitting stations. We're going to have different challenges in the weight room with pitching and infield stuff. So we want them to see these themes, not just talk about them, but to see it, to go through it, to really figure out what does it mean to them. And through that, when we go into that era, we're talking about our systems. Like, how do we win? What makes us, like, what are we pouring into when it comes to the game? We're not trying to win the game in the first inning, right? So as pitchers, we have our systems. We want to win the 1-1 count. We want to try to get ahead within the first 2 pitches. We want to try to force an action in 4 pitches or less. And then as a defense and pitching, if we get five of the 7 outs, then we're doing pretty good. Offense has their own systems as well. So it really keeps things in perspective, and it helps us to compete in the moment rather than thinking, okay, we have to win this game. And that can be overwhelming, and it doesn't serve anyone to think about that outcome. So the last 2 that we go into, and this is saved for the springtime, is enthusiasm for the process. And that just sounds what it sounds like. So it's very self-explanatory, but how do we not put so much emotion into outcomes? How do we focus more on what we're putting in, the things that we can control, and things like that? So it helps us to stay more grounded, especially when a lot of times people can focus on just the winning and losing piece. And then the final one is enthusiasm for purpose. And that's I have a picture of it. I can send it to you, Jason, but it's like a pyramid, and enthusiasm for purpose is at the very top. So everything like relationship with self, giving back to the community, effort, competitive excellence, they're all built. And then enthusiasm for purpose is at the very top because it's your why, right? It's when things get tough and you feel like you're not pouring into yourself or things aren't going well, like reminding yourself what's your why, like why are you showing up? Why are you here? What do you want out of it? Who are you doing it for even, right? So I think that at the top when you can build from the inside out and then you have that anchor of purpose, it allows teams and individuals to go through obstacles and adversity and get out on the other side from it. That's the 6 pillars of Ball State softball. Sorry.
Wow, that's pretty thorough.
Ran through that.
Well, and it's interesting that it's tied not just to, it's not just like everything all at once, but that you have it on kind of a timetable, and there's a build. I'm sure that the fall pieces still impact the spring.
Oh, we talk about it a lot. Yeah, especially fill your cup. Like being able to fill your cup in the springtime, pour into yourself, continuing to focus on relationships, even because when people aren't starting, people are starting to get unhappy. Okay, we can't just say like we check that box. It's all of these things are, especially when you get to the spring, they're all kind of working simultaneously because they have to. They're not just one-offs. They affect day to day. They affect what you put into your work and what you put into yourself and what you put into your teammates. And so they're all in the springtime, they're all working at the same time for sure.
I love the one that you talked about, the process. What was that one again?
So basically, like, I view it as controlling what you can control. When you do that, like when we play out our best, it's what we're putting into our actions and how we're responding to the outcomes. It's like this flow. Like the 2 things that we can control is our approach to the event and our response to the event. Everything else within the event, it's physical. It's, if we're doing everything else right, of how we approach it, our mindset, our effort, our attitude about it, our, what we're telling ourselves, and then we're responding. It's almost like a circle, right? So if this was the event, my approach is going this way, my response, thinking like a pitcher, she's walking around the circle now, coming back to the mound. So the approach to the pitch and then the response to the pitch, all of that, like that's that 20-second in between that really affects the 10-second of the action. And so the process is like, what are we putting into the empty space, quote unquote, empty space? What happens before and after the event? And to me, like that process is, how do you show up? How do you show up to the field? How detailed are you about your work and your intent behind it? Because the outcome of your actual outcome is going to be what it's going to be, but we get better by those in-between moments, that empty space, if you will. Like, to me, that's where you find your wins that help you win outcome-wise more often.
Mm-hmm. And my question was on that, Helen, and this is, I feel like, the generation that we're in right now is the right now generation, right? Like everybody wants it right now. We want to win right now. We want to throw the ball 65 miles an hour right now. We want to hit 20 home runs a year right now. And it's hard to, at least in my experiences dealing with them, especially with parents, is listen, this is a process. This is a journey. And do you feel that it's harder to coach those kids, they're more concerned about the outcome than they are the process. Are you seeing that at your level still, or are you still seeing kids that are like, I get this. Listen, I'm a good pitcher, as a freshman, but man, what am I going to be if I continue this process as a senior, even at your level? Are you seeing that with kids? Are they struggling like, oh, I got to be good just right now? Or do you have those kids that are like, I understand I'm going to have my ups and downs here, but it's the journey that's going to be special?
I think some get it quicker than others. And I think the more we help them fail in practice, they start to see the importance of the process. Like the more because we want them to fail a lot. Right. And I think at lower levels, like travel ball, sometimes like they maybe aren't pushed a ton. So they see that success like right away. And then they chase the success and they forget kind of like what got them there. And then when they get to the next level, it's like, oh, shoot, like I'm failing every single day. And then they put more pressure on themselves. And then it just gets this spiraling effect. And so I think while they're failing, it's important as instructors, teachers, coaches to help them focus on the in-between, the in-between space, not it's not where we want to go. It's how do we get there? Like, what's the game plan of how do we get there? And it kind of ties into that relentless effort piece of when we sign our name off, it doesn't mean we went 5 for 5. It means, in the weight room, I gassed myself. Like I gave my energy into what I was doing and I had good intent behind it. And, whether I failed at getting my max clean or not, like I gave it my all and tomorrow's a new day. Right. So I think them failing and then helping them through how they view the failure helps them to focus a little bit more on the process, because that's where you get your small wins. And if they want to compete and they want to be winners, but they're failing a lot because at this level, we need them to fail, they're getting those small wins through the process. And I think that motivates them to, rechannel where they're putting their mind and effort. But it's work in progress. Sometimes it's harder and it takes longer for others.
So yeah, and along with that, then when you're on the recruiting trail, what traits do you look for that tell you this kid probably can handle the kind of failure you're talking about better than another one? I would assume that you'd rather find kids that have the talent and the ability to handle the failure.
Yeah, I think who they're playing against is a big one. If they're playing against the best of the best every single weekend, whether they're winning or losing, like that competitiveness and the desire to win, I mean, they're going to lose. So kind of who they're playing against, I think, is important. But watching responses, I remember watching a kid, she's going to Penn State actually, but I fell in love with how she played the game. Like she ran her butt off. She got out, but she ran her butt off to first base and immediately like slapped her hands and then sprinted off the field. And that was it. So to me, like the response doesn't have to be robotic. Like I was very passionate. had a very intense nature about me. But if you can rechannel it to help you, because passion can be two ways, right? It can be positive, it can be negative. So how you channel it is important. And so if you're able to have that moment where you just slap your hands, but then you're moving on to the next pitch, or you're moving on to sprint to the dugout to help, cheer on that next batter, to me, that's what I like to see, is like you can show some emotion, but how you use that emotion to your benefit or to your detriment, it's important. How fast you can recover is a huge one. So the ones who can recover fastest are usually, especially for a pitcher, the ones that I really like to see.
So when you're out watching a game, if sometimes it tells you more if you actually see the kid fail. I know that, if a kid invites you out to come see her play, she wants to look great. She wants to be successful. But, I think in a lot of ways, it's probably better for you if she is having a little bit of trouble, so you can see how she reacts, and is she going to be able to have the mindset?
Skill is easy. Everyone can spot talent. Someone's got a great rise ball, great spin, great mechanics. So skill and mechanics is really the foundation. I mean, If I've got two people that are equal when it comes to talent and coachability and things like that, it's those other pieces that are going to make me want to choose one or the other. It's the intangibles. It's how they're treating their teammates. It's how well they can respond after failure. How fast can they recover? And are they being a good teammate? Are they doing these other things, that we would love to see in our program, of things that are part of our culture? Those are things, because skill wise, they have to be a ball player, right? Like, we can't reteach a lot of things with the time that we have and how we're trying to grow. And so the foundation of having the skills is one thing, but what's going to set you apart is all those other things. So we definitely, if someone's a good hitter or a good pitcher, I love to see them field. I mean, that's why we have to watch them multiple times to see their reaction, to see are they capable of redirecting their focus and energy. Are they giving their teammates confidence even when things aren't going well? Things like that. So yeah, we absolutely have to see them fail just as much as we see them succeed.
I can't thank you enough for being with us today, but I do want to nerd out for the last couple 10 minutes or so, if you don't mind, about pitching. You hear, or, you see all of these kids, people always say, velocity, spins, all of this stuff. Like, for you, like, what would you say is one of the most important things at the Division I level for pitchers to have? Like, what are things that, when you're looking at a kid, or, you're asking a pitching coach about a certain kid, like, what are the things that you're asking or looking for? Like the data wise, if you know what I mean.
The data wise, everyone's going to do something. So I have like a buckets, right, that I think about, and velo, break, command, deception, right? If someone has all of them, not sure that I'm going to get them, right? But if we can have like 2 of the 4, 3 of the 4, if they can do something special within those. So like, let's say with break and like spin, right? We know that with spin, you don't have to have necessarily high spin rate. If you can have true spin, if you can have true spin direction of where it's going. We also know that you can have a lot of spin, but if you have enough velo and you have gyro, you can get some elevation on it, right? Depending on how it comes out of the fingers. So sometimes spin direction is overpowered by velo and RPM. It can have a little bit I learned that from Josh Johnson, because I like to pick his brain as well. He's a lot smarter than I am. So it really, there's not like one thing. It's how one thing affects and is connected to the other silos, right? I think we get so hung up on has to be velo, has to be the correct spin. Oh my gosh, she has a bullet spin, or it has to be this. It's like, no, like it's all connected, and certain kids can do special things, and it would be a horrible disservice to them if we were going to try to change something that makes them unique. Thinking of a pitcher that I know of mine, she gets into very interesting positions, but it makes her so unique. Of the arm slot that she gets into, it's something that maybe you wouldn't teach, but if you change it, you change the uniqueness of what she does really well. And if you change one thing, it could change so many other things like within it, because it's like domino effect, right? If you let that domino go and it changes all these other things, well, then she's lost who she is as a pitcher, and like what's made her successful throughout her, 17 years of playing. So I can't maybe give you the answer that you want there, because I do believe that there's so many things that are connected. O'Toole from Arizona, lefty, she had low spin rate, but she had true curve spin, and she had a ton of break. So some people would look at her Rapsodo numbers and be like, oh my gosh, she has to get more RPMs on it. Like, she's not getting enough. If she did that, she would rip it, and she would lose break. She would lose spin and command. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah. And conversely, I've seen things posted before, these kids with incredibly high spin rates, and yet when they get in the game, they can't get people out.
It's flat. probably.
Or they can't control it for a strike, which is even worse because if you're walking people, you're giving people free runs.
Yeah.
And that's, I think my question was, and that's, trying to work to that too, is Ken and I are always talking about data.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. You have data, but like you just said, sometimes the data isn't exactly everything we need to know. If we've got a kid who has a great rise ball and it's getting people out, regardless of what the data says, she's getting people out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think, when we focus on this, that's why I don't like when people are saying, oh, data, this pitch doesn't tunnel with this pitch because it's not spinning, but yet the kid's getting swings and misses on that pitch. So, data is wonderful. It gives us information, but we have to know what to do with that data to help our pitchers be better. And I think sometimes just because a kid doesn't click a box or it doesn't have this doesn't mean that that's going to be a bad pitch for that kid. I mean, I think we're, Ken and I are into the motor preferences a little bit now. And we're seeing that kids, some kids are better supinators than they are pronators. And, and I think that's going to have an effect on the pitches coming out of their hands. And I think, I like data. Ken likes data. We both have pitch logic balls and we love that data, but in the game, that's when it matters the most. And so, how do you use your data to help you as a coach, but maybe not over pollute your players' heads? Would that be a fair statement? Or are you like, okay, here's what your rise ball does is like you just said, you've got this kind of spin rate on it, but she's still getting swings and misses. Is that something that you're using to help your players at Ball State or?
I think it's so like I said, we have that one pitcher that gets into like a unique position. And yeah, so we're using that. I think it's, again, it's about the buckets. Like if she's got good swings and misses, like if someone has good swings and misses, but we're losing command on it, I think that's where we go into the timing mechanics and things like that. If someone doesn't have good spin rate and they're getting hit, but they're commanding it, then it's like, okay, then we need to see what's the mobility like within the supination pronation. Like, are we maintaining it? Are we in the middle of the season, pitchers lose mobility. So they lose sometimes break if you don't have a plan for mobility. So if I start to see like in the numbers that we're losing break, we're losing maybe the height of where it starts and where it ends, it gives feedback. It's really hard for us to say like it's not a good pitch just because of numbers, because you do have velo, you have command, you have deception, you have break, you have all these things, pitching IQ, how to get batters out. Like those 5 buckets, if you have a pitcher that's in 3 of them, I think you're doing pretty good, right? So it's just about what does that pitcher do well and like how can we maximize that? The data is going to give us feedback into the plan. It shouldn't tell the whole story is what I think.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. The other thing that Jay and I talk about and we laugh at a lot of times is, the Instagram drills. You see all these crazy drills out on the internet. What do you think about that? Our feeling is kind of that, once somebody goes through all the good stuff, they're now faced with what do I do today? So they start inventing these crazy drills. And honestly, I think it hurts people more than it helps them. But, how do you feel about that?
I think that's why you have to get the kids to ask why. Like you have to, if you're following someone just because they're a name and maybe, they're still doing drills that they did when they were younger or playing and things like that, I think the kids have to like start taking ownership of the journey. And I know at a young age that's hard. Like 11-year-old's not going to ask their pitching coach, okay, like why am I doing this? But at a certain time and a certain level, like we have to ask like, okay, what is this going to do? What am I trying to get out of it? What is it supposed to fix? How does this drill? Because you can do a bunch of drills. If it doesn't connect to the actual pitching motion, then there's a disconnect of the bridge. Right? Because I remember like doing a bunch of drills and I would get so frustrated. So I'm like, well, I could do it when my feet were on the ground and I'm just doing a windmill. I could get it. I could get the right spin, but now I'm pushing off of a mound, I'm airborne and I'm changing directions 3 times while working an arm over my head. How come I can't get the same spin? Well, it's like you're literally airborne, and then you're trying to meet the ground again, and you're trying to maintain that position. Trunk stability, all of that comes into play. How you transfer the energy, and so drills are one thing. And I think us as pitching coaches, that's the fun part of when we give drills. Does it actually connect to the pitching motion of what the pitcher's going to be doing within the body? Is it just a field drill? That's another thing that we kind of go through. I have a field drill, and then there's drills that connect. A field drill could be something that the pitcher, it's not realistic, but she just has to have some awareness of what's different, almost like an over exaggeration of a feel. And then we have drills that are connectors that bridge the gap between what I want to feel, what's happening in my motion, and then how can I basically transfer that over, But I think I see a lot too. I follow a lot. And I think it's just us as a pitching community getting together like this and creating maybe some conferences or clinics where we could all get together and just talk ideas and talk about the whys and really start to help athletes from the younger ages so that we can see pitching start to combat the offense that hasn't been exploding for the past, a decade or so. So
if you're looking at it, talking about pitchers now, is there one or two favorite drills that you have that you say, boy, this is a must-have for every pitcher. This is something that everybody ought to be doing on a regular basis?
So I was talking to a baseball coach the other day and playing catch, do you have feel awareness and command over your body to control the intensity, the direction, and the timing? Can you just play catch? Baseball, they play catch all the time, right? If they don't hit their partner right here, it's what the heck? When you watch, MLB and they're warming up for games, you never see them catching over here, catching Can you just play catch? Can you have that feel awareness of hitting your partner? To me,
just
that
dead center in the chest.
It trains a lot of commanding the body at a certain intensity. Can you control your direction, right? So can I move my body forward and then stay in alignment, and rotate from there? And then can I focus on my timing? When my foot is landing, where is my arm? And can I be on time to hit someone in the chest 5 times in a row? To me, it's almost like a lost art in a sense. I don't know if it ever was an art. It was just something maybe that I've just seen elite pitchers do because they have that awareness. And drill wise, not sure. I mean, I feel like different pitchers need different things. One thing that I do like personally that I think a lot of my pitchers benefit from is pause starts. So how do we move from the middle? They go through their natural motion, but I call it load to launch. And, from our pause start, how are we putting pressure into the ground? How are we moving from the middle? How are we getting posture, upright posture from the hips and hip extension? To me, that's always a good one. I see a lot of either inefficiencies or strengths from the ones who go into that position. I feel like there's a lot of talk about drills all day, but there's a lot of different ones. But I think I like those too.
So yeah, I agree with you on the play and catch. That's how a lot of my lessons will start lessons. Let's play catch underhand. That's what we're going to do. And I try to tell them in men's fast pitch, you don't really see anybody throwing overhand first. Everybody's throwing underhand. You're just playing catch underhand, and then they'll move into throwing overhand. And that's how we would warm up back in the day. And I think that has changed a ton. I have one more question for you today, and that Ken might have another one or two, but you talked about how you were taught when you were growing up in pitching, and you said you had to break yourself down. What were some of the things that you were whoa, I was being taught this, but my body moved like that. Was that some of the things that you realized when you were breaking your own mechanics down back then, when you had to break yourself down? Were there any moments in there where you're okay, I was taught this, but I'm really doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was 9 or 10, I threw fastball and changeup. That was my bread and butter. But I was being taught to close really early. And it was by a guy. Like both of my pitching coaches were guys, but I was taught to close really early, and my body was like doing it, but I was starting to feel like pain. Like the sequencing wasn't right. Like the timing at which you want to turn the trunk and connect, right? Let that fall and then connect through. Like it was off. And so, and even like my load, like I wasn't like loading. I wasn't really taught like to load. And so I was successful early on and then didn't have much success. And I was also going, like 12, 13 years old, when that happens. And then, so the body starts to change a little bit, strength starts to change. And then, I had to kind of relearn some things from the ground up when it came to load and sequencing. I was a lefty, and my best ones were my curve going across, my drop curve going down and in, change up. And then I could never really throw a rise ball because of I wish I knew what I know now. I wish I knew back then, but no one ever talked to me about mobility. They were just like, yes, try to stay here and get under. And that never happened. So my shoulder wasn't able to. So just having to like relearn, what is a load? Like, how do I drive out? And then I had a glove side. Like if someone were to try to fix that glove side issue, I wouldn't have had the break and movement and success and swings and misses that I did with my drop curve, because that helped me to rotate. So again, like when people do things that are kind of special and like you change the one thing because you just have this philosophy that no, this is how it should be. I think coaches need to be careful of that. But there's a ton of stuff I think like I wish I knew then that I know now. But I think that's just the evolution and beauty of our sport and technology and what it's gotten to. And I know we have a long ways to go as a pitching community, but I think we're going in the right direction for sure.
That's great. So one other question from me, and that is, so let's say there's a young woman listening to this right now. She's a player, but she's thinking, maybe I'd like to coach. You have any recommendations for someone like that? What should she be doing, or how should she be thinking to maybe make that transition?
I would say have an open mind. I would say try to figure out like why you're wanting to get into coaching, right? I think whether we like the softball IQ of things and we like the light bulb moments, which is what kind of first got me. And then I started to realize, okay, like my passion and purpose I thought was for something else, but I really can navigate it into this space. And how does that come through? How does that translate and things like that? So I think it's the same. Our job is to help people find their purpose and their why. So as a coach going into it, I would challenge them to try to find that first, because that's going to navigate and help them, like what makes them special, what makes them unique with their coaching style. It's going to help them to be authentic in certain spaces, which athletes need. Like they're going to see BS, right? Like they're going to call it out. And so really, like if you can be authentic and you can live through why you want to do this, I think you can find happiness even through hard times. And then I think you're going to have a really long career if they can do those two things.
I lied. I have one more question for you.
Oh.
Okay.
So what's a hidden talent that you have that your players would be surprised to find out? We've asked this before, and it's fun to hear these answers. So more of something fun.
Hidden talent. Shoot. I mean, it's not really hidden. I drink a lot of energy drinks. I can drink 3 in a day. I'm just kidding. A hidden talent.
Yeah, do you sing or you dance or, you like to juggle?
Oh, I wish I could juggle. No. I mean, it's not really I mean, I like to go in the mosh pit a little bit. Like, so I like music. So music is like passionate. Like I'm very passionate about music. I love going to concerts and festivals and things like that. And growing up, music like got me through a lot, right? I was kind of this like angry emo metal like type person, but at school, like no one would have guessed because I was like a jock as well. So it was kind of this weird balance. But yeah, I like to go into mosh pits at times, and
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You just got some more cool points today, Helen. That's
nice.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it. It's funny. I have a 10-year-old, and she's like, Dad, what should my walk-up song be? And at first it was like, some
Disturbed?
Rihanna song. Right? No, oh, wait, it gets better. First it was like some Rihanna song, and then all of a sudden I'm showing her the Enter Sandman song at Virginia Tech and then all of a sudden every car ride to practice now we start with Enter Sandman. Now her walk-up song is, Welcome to the Jungle.
There you go. Good girl.
Yeah.
Good job, Dad.
Now she's got the Disturbed song and she's listening to Shine Down. I'm like, okay, maybe I am going to be a good parent. Who knows?
Oh my goodness. You've done so well. Shine Down.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well,
Down with the Sickness might be a good one too.
Oh yeah. She loves that one.
Song by Trapped back in the day. That was.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome job, Dad.
Good stuff. Great. I'm trying. All I can do is try every day. So one last thing, if you don't mind, where can people follow along and stay connected with the team this year as you guys go along and, your non-conference and MAC? Where can they find Ball State softball at?
Yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I know this generation probably doesn't maybe have a Facebook. So Twitter and Instagram, Ball State SB, follow it, maybe put the notifications on so you can see what's upcoming. And, everything will be on there from, upcoming camps to fall games. We've really tried to do an improvement just on the social media side and get connected with everything. And so I would encourage them to follow those two accounts and come out to some games. They're free. We're going to have a new field this year. We're going to have all new turf. And then eventually we're going to have a clubhouse out there. So some really exciting things that are going to be going on development wise for Ball State. So I encourage them to come out and support our girls. They're awesome.
And Ball State in the fall is immaculate.
It's pretty. It is absolutely gorgeous.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So even if you're coming from the South or whatever, definitely come on out. It's beautiful. It's a great town. It's a great school. So we definitely have some fall games that will be posted pretty soon.
Thank you so much, Helen. We really appreciate all the time you spent with us today and the insights you gave us. And it was great learning more about you and kind of your journey. It's a little unique from some of the other people we've talked to. So I also think it's great for people to hear that you don't necessarily have to start out as a star or focused or something, that you could find your passion within there and it'll, change the rest of your life.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. I love what you guys are doing. And I just love the opportunity to come on here and share my story and share some things about Ball State softball. So thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for us this week. Thanks to all of you for listening and the kind words you've been sharing with us. If you like what you're hearing, please remember to give us a like, leave a comment, and share this podcast on your social media channels. If you're so inclined, you can also leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts to help more people find us. On behalf of the From the Coach's Mouth podcast, have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.